Technically, everything changes your life. Every breath, every eye movement, every interaction. But when we say something changed our life, we mean it changed our lives significantly, substantially. So I'm very reluctant to say when something changed my life. The things that have changed my life substantially are relatively rare, very far and few between. So when I say that something as seemingly trivial as a camera changed my life, it's not like it injected a new philosophy or a new worldview into my head, but it was a pivot point. It was a significant alteration in my trajectory. Flashback to 2020, and Kristen and I were in beautiful Invermere, British Columbia, helping a church walk through a season of transition and prepare for a new pastor. I was also consulting with another church in the Okanagan and going out there every few weeks to meet with people and cover a weekend or two for teaching. But then everything shut down. Those of us involved in church work had to quickly scramble and figure out how to do church online. I began simply using my phone, but quickly realized this was going to go on for a while. I better get some gear that made sense. Intense online research led me to conclude that the Sony a6400, which I'm shooting on right now, was the way to go. In retrospect, it was definitely the right choice. Even though it came out in 2018, it was then and even today an excellent camera. It shoots in 4K video if desired. It's got exceptional autofocus that tracks very well. You just set up the tripod, push record, and carry on with the service. No operator was needed. It was so good for that. The ZV-E10 is probably the way to go today for the same purpose, but it wasn't available back then. When I got the a6400, photography wasn't on my mind. But living in a place like Invermere, where we were always outside, I just started bringing it with us. And right out of the gate, it took much nicer pictures than my little point-and-shoot Fuji could, as good as that camera was. So I decided to get a little zoom lens, the Tamron 28-200, which brought me to a whole new level. And then I got the Tamron 18-300, a lens so versatile that it basically stayed on my camera unless I was in the studio. And now, just recently, a few weeks ago, the Tamron 150-500. I've just started using it. I really wanted the Sony 200-600, but settled on this one for a few reasons. It was a bit cheaper, but based on something a reviewer said when I was comparing this Tamron with the big Sony and a similar Sigma lens. The reviewer said if you want to get a lens you'll actually use, get the Tamron. The point being that it's much smaller than the others, very close in quality, very close in reach, and more likely to be on your camera when you walk around. I'm actually really glad I got this one, which is plenty big enough. We're just entering spring here. The birds will soon be arriving and I'll be able to give it a bit more of a workout, but I can already tell it's going to be amazing. When I compare it to pictures I took last year with the pictures I'm already taking this year, there's no comparison. This camera has changed my life, our lives, because it's added a whole nother layer to our outdoor adventures. In the past, our outdoor activity was about canoeing and fishing and camping, some hunting, a little bit of hiking. But what this camera has done is that it's increased the hiking and the canoeing and made it more likely we're going to go out for a small hike or a paddle on a day off or even just a free evening, because it's an opportunity to take some more pictures. It also allows us to take fantastic pictures of ourselves and our grandkids and other situations. It's become a substantial hobby. I'm quite grateful that this is the camera I got. Again, it was the right choice for the video work, but unknown to me at the time, it was a hybrid camera, which means it's kind of balanced between videography and photography. It has a 24 megapixel sensor, which sounds small compared to some today, but it's more than adequate, honestly, for most photographers. It's an APS-C camera, which is also called a crop sensor camera, as opposed to a larger full frame. This means that whatever millimeter lens you're using, say a 200 millimeter lens or a lens zoomed into 200 millimeters, what it's seeing is actually 50% more. So a 200 millimeter is effectively 300 millimeters. My Tamron 150 to 500 sees up to 750 millimeters. And that gives a significant advantage when it comes to wildlife photography. An APS-C camera isn't as good in low light as the full frames are, but it gives that extra zoom, which is perfect for what we do. Of course, once you start into photography, gear acquisition syndrome can kick in and become a hazard. I quickly added a little cage on mine because it allowed a mic while still keeping the flip-up screen visible. Of course, I had to get a camera bag and a little camera backpack. My next major piece of gear is probably going to be a really good camera backpack. Recently, because I got this big, huge lens now, I upgraded to a proper strap. Beautiful strap. Actually makes a big difference. I can't believe it. I've also got a Peak Design clip for my backpack, which works with smaller lenses on the camera. And of course, there are filters, there are tripods, and tripods I've only begun to look into. I know that's a whole nother rabbit hole where you can literally spend not as much as you want, but actually far more than you want on a tripod. I did add a little drone, which I've talked about and will probably talk about more. It really is a pleasant addition to the whole mix of gear. And of course, there's extra batteries and memory cards and that sort of thing. Obviously, with the videoing of church services and sermons, I had to get into some video editing and now photo processing and learning all about that side of things. It's really become a significant part of what we do. It's added a layer of pleasure to what we were already doing. And as a creative person, which most of us are, it really allows me to engage in that creativity and review the photos and do the editing through the long winter months where we live. There is, of course, the constant temptation to upgrade to a new camera. At this point, I'd be leaning towards the a6400, which is 2 steps or 2 generations ahead of this one. It's still an APS-C camera, but has some useful new tech. I actually came very close to getting one recently. But I'm grateful I took the advice of so many I've been following online, and rather than upgrading my camera, I upgraded my lens. And was that ever the right choice? A new camera would have had a few extra little features to it, but it would not do what this lens does in terms of reach and sharpness. Of course, getting into photography and videography leads you into a whole new subculture, a whole new ecosystem online on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. There are some fantastic channels that are both entertaining and informative and inspirational. In fact, it's just one. It's a no-brainer. Simon d'Entremont. Especially if you are into bird or wildlife photography. He takes amazing pictures and is an excellent teacher. Most of us would benefit from getting outside more. And photography has gotten us outside more, and we already had a bias towards getting outside. I believe the heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. I believe that from the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made. So for me, the outdoors and the added layer of photography has a spiritual component in addition to the physical and mental and relational benefits my wife and I have gained. As a part of this whole blossoming photography side of my life, I'll be putting down my thoughts like this from time to time, talking about things I'm learning, pictures I'm taking, gear I'm trying not to buy. So please consider subscribing. Check the description for links to my photo site. And let me know what camera got you into photography or videography. Thanks for listening. Hope to see you again soon.